Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the DSS break. It's great to have all of you back here with us again today. I'm Anna Annison, the founder of Data Science Salon, and today I'm streaming directly from our headquarters, which is beautifully located in the heart of Miami, just a few blocks from the Design District. And we're here live every week to discuss the world of data science, AI, and machine learning, and we chat about unique experiences and best practices with leading data professionals in a 15-minute break. And I'm so excited today to welcome Deksha Mishra, Data Science Manager at Meta. And Deksha led teams across Facebook News, Facebook Creators, and Instagram Delivery. And with over 12 years of experience in business analytics and experimentation, Deksha brings deep insights into how organizations can actually translate data into tangible outcomes. And in this break, we're going to explore how she applies advanced experimentation and just talk about A/B testing and frameworks and how AI is changing that whole landscape. And from diving into engagement on most spread platforms to reshaping experimental culture, your journey is full of such amazing insights for anybody building data science functions or leading optimization efforts across product teams. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you so much, Hannah, for a wonderful introduction, and I'm super excited to speak to you.
Well, let's kick off and start with your journey. What drew you into data science in the first place, and how did you really find this specific niche of A/B testing and experimentation?
Sure. So I'll start off by a little bit about my background. I have an engineering degree from India, and I moved to US in 2014 for MBA from Georgetown. Georgetown University at that time had a lot of focus on problem solving and business analytics and how do we bring a more structured approach to any problem. And that really interested me. Data science at its core is a problem solving field. You're just using the lens or tools of data science to solve a problem. That's what initially drew me to this field. My first job out of business school was at Retail Minat, where I joined as a business analyst first, and then eventually was leading all of their product analytics and A/B testing. The work there was super interesting, and that's when I first started learning about how can we use A/B testing beyond just as the last stage before we launch a product to answer more deeper questions about how do we learn about the users better, how do we set our goals better, how do we measure progress against those goals, etc. um, I worked with Retail Me now for about 6 years, and in the last 4 years, I've been working with Meta. And like you introduced, I've been on several teams within Meta. Meta also has a great experimentation culture, and that's where my interest in A/B testing actually deepened. The way I feel about A/B testing is that it's a tool that everyone is familiar with. It's nothing like particularly new in the field of data science, but how you implement it and how you interpret and use the results is what makes all the difference. And that's what I'm hoping we can discuss more.
Yeah, so let's dive right into that because that really matters. And like, how do you really align this with business goals? Can you give us an example maybe or some use case where testing led to something really unexpected? Because I feel like that's what we're looking for as like the end user, right?
Yeah. Like I've been in data science for 12 years. 12 years back, when I first started off in data science, it was a very service organization. So your cross-functional partners had a question and they would reach out to you. And your job as a data scientist or a business analyst was to provide that data point to them. And I feel like in the 12 years that I've been in this space, the landscape has changed quite a bit. The ask is not just like, can you pull this data, but it's also help us solve this question. And data science finally has a seat at the table. I feel that's even more so true for tech companies that rely heavily on data to make those decisions. Some ways that we've been able to make these decisions very effectively in my experience have been both at Retail Minot and at Meta is one, obviously in large decisions, which is something that companies usually do, but also learning about the user on operational things that we don't possibly like have a good understanding of how it impacts user value. So
Right.
think about how much should we invest in making our app faster versus how much should we invest in making our app fresher, like fetching you the fastest content versus fetching you the freshest content. How do we make that balance? You want to do what's best for the user, but how do you get an understanding of how much does a user value fresh versus fast? How do you develop that understanding? And these kind of learning questions are really well answered through A/B testing. You could possibly also answer other analytics tools, but A/B testing is the most scientific way to establish causation. And one of the things that we've been able to do is, like, for example, some of these operational things identify exactly how much does user value fresh versus fast, how much does user value the like fresh versus fast on this app versus some other app, or like between different surfaces, and how should we prioritize things to serve users the best possible value.
No, that's a great answer. And I think for some folks that are unfamiliar, can you break down what transfer functions are and how they help link performance indicators to enterprise value? Because I think some people might not know this.
So, well, for a lot of operational heavy teams, we have metrics that we measure internally, which are like our operational metrics. For example, this could be something like latency, and or it could be something like how fresh is the content. These are all operational metrics that we track usually. We don't have a good understanding of how it impacts user value in terms of time spent, in terms of like how frequently a user visits, retention, etc. And what A/B testing can help us do is connect the dot between these two. So, for example, for every X unit of latency, freshness, any other such operational metric, what is the implication on time spent, on user retention, etc. So, by developing this kind of transfer function, it makes it very easy for teams that focus on operational things to set goals and drive true user value beyond just focusing on making some improvements to operational metrics.
Right. No, that is an amazing explanation. And now I understand it too. So thank you, Daksha. And what common pitfalls do you see teams fall into when running A/B tests or designing experiments? I'm sure there's a lot of them, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to start up with like a much broader theme around this one as well. I think the most important thing is developing the right hypothesis for why are you testing and what exactly are you trying to measure. Not having a very solid hypothesis is possibly the biggest gap that you can have. But clearly articulating this is the user problem, and how does this user problem or this like business problem translate into a data question. So
Right.
let me take a very like hypothetical example here. Let's say we are a fashion retailer and we want to focus on how much should we focus on making our app faster, and should we invest in making it faster, or should we focus on, I don't know, some other investment that we could put end resources towards? What does this translate to in terms of an A/B testing question? The question in that case becomes how much value can we drive with this versus something else? And so that's like designing a solid hypothesis is number one. The number two one is just focusing on one primary metric that you try to measure your progress on. So any experiment you run, you will see that some metrics will move positively, some will move negatively. A a well-defined experiment tries to get ahead of this. And what we try to do is think about how will we evaluate this experiment even before we have results from this experiment. And thinking about not just the primary metric, but also what are some of the counter metrics that you should look at to be able to evaluate it more holistically. For example, a lot of the gaming apps, for example, they will have very high engagement early on, but over time the retention goes down. So if you were working for a gaming company, how do you not just make decision based on engagement that you see on day one, but also additional metrics that help you understand retentive value over time? Yeah, these are two that we
No,
talked
that's amazing. That's an amazing answer. And kind of to go back into that, how would you scale these frameworks across? Is there a way to do that across different teams and product lines?
So, some ways that we've done this in organizations that I've been part of is creating like experimentation best practices, asking people to very well define. One of the things that we did at Art was clearly articulating, asking people to articulate what is the business question, what is the hypothesis that we're trying to test, asking people to actually fill out what is the primary and the secondary metrics that we're trying to measure, what are additional things that we look at, etc. So that's one thing we did. Obviously, training is a big part of it, but mostly this is like where I think data scientists can truly shine by taking the lead and like helping the org understand on how to do some of this, creating some kind of frameworks that others in the organization can follow so that they are thinking through all of these things that I just mentioned when they're designing their experiments.
Cool. No, that is again an amazing answer. And as someone with experience both in tech and business analytics, how do you ensure your work actually drives impact that decision makers can understand and act on? Because I think that is the biggest challenge that I hear from people, that it's just not like, kind of translated correctly to the decision makers.
I think that kind of starts first from listening. So making sure that you are very well informed of the business context. You could be working on the most exciting piece of data, but if it does not relate to what's important to the business at that moment, it's very difficult to get traction and movement on it. And so how do you make sure that you have all the business context? I've seen a lot of really strong data scientists do not fully understand how the business that they're operating in operates, what generates money, what are the concerns, etc. So they just like first fully understanding the business context, understanding from XFNs what are the most important problems. I think the 90% of the battle is won just by making sure you're working on the right set of data questions. And then the remaining is how do you make like a really data driven thing, or say a very data centric thing, easy to understand for non data functions. And so how do you communicate data in the easiest way possible? What visualizations you use? How do you make sure that when you're sharing this, you are sharing not just like, hey, I discovered 2% of users do this, but what is the implication of this and what can business do about this? Someone I worked with had a really good framing on don't just answer what, but also answer why, so what, and now what of the question, and that like helps close the full gap.
Right. No, that's again a great answer. And what about AI, and how is the AI powered personalization affecting AI, A/B testing, and real time feedback loops? Because I'm sure it's changing now, right? Because there's a lot of content that's generated by AI as well. So,
Yeah, the way I see it, it makes the job of a data scientist even easier because a lot of the things that a data scientist would have spent time doing, AI makes it easier to do that, a lot of the grunt work. So the question becomes, what do you now add value on that's on top of what like tools can already do for you? And that's great because that's where the transition from a business analyst to a decision scientist or someone who generate impacts actually happens, not just like spending time writing the query, because that's where tools can already help you, are not just like pulling data or calculating numbers, but also what does this data mean, how should we implement, spending time actually analyzing the data and the implications of the data.
no, for sure. And do you have any tools that you like to use for just yourself in the stack? Any open source things or just things that you like that you want to share?
Yeah. All sorry, I don't have a great answer here. Like all tools, I just like trying to stay up to date.
Yeah, and I'm sure you guys have a lot of internal stuff that you build, because that's, usually large orgs do that. And just the last quick question, can you give us a little sneak peek of what you're going to talk about at the Data Science Salon in a couple of weeks? Really excited to hear your session.
And I'm super excited to both participate in and present at the conference. It's going to be a lot along the lines of what we just discussed, but I wanted to discuss some business cases and how we were able to use A/B testing effectively to understand some of these really complex problems that it was not as straightforward to analyze through any other techniques. What did we learn? What were the outcomes of that? It's I try to move away from a lot of broad techniques and focus on like one case study and one technique specifically, and actually walk the group through the particular case study and how we used A/B testing. That's broadly what the structure is. We'll also talk about what are some ways to run effective tests and what are some common pitfalls. I know we discussed two right now, but there are more that we can discuss. And also, how do we successfully run A/B tests? Again, we discussed a few things, but there's more discussion to be had there.
Cool. No, thank you so much. Actually, I'm really excited to see your session, and also thank you for this insightful conversation. Your experience scaling, experimentation, and transforming product decisions through data is really valuable, and you guys can catch Dexter's session, which is going to be called From Insights to Impact, Leveraging Data Science and Experimentation for Business Performance Improvement, at the 8th Annual Data Science Salon Miami next month at the lab. So it was a really nice session. Thank you so much for tuning in, and have a wonderful rest of the week, guys. Bye.
So much. It was wonderful chatting with you.